Is it okay for Christians to read other religious holy books?
Where America is in Bible prophecy.
Women becoming pastors and
Anointing homes and praying over homes.
Why would God have people tormented and burned for eternity?
What happened or where Jesus went after he died?
what is your opinion and what does the Bible say?
This is Pastor's Perspective. We're here every Monday through Friday providing answers on a variety of topics, including the Bible, end times, other religions, and the family. And now here's today's host, Brian Perez.
What's up, everybody? Thanks so much for listening to the Pastor's Perspective program. Thanks for watching, too, on Facebook. And, we've got in the studio today author and apologist Dr. Bobby Conway from the 1 Minute Apologist channel on YouTube. Also, Pastor Brian Broderson from Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California. You also hear Brian on the Back to Basics radio program, heard on many of these same stations. And if Brian's program is not heard on your station, call your general manager at the station and say, we want Brian Broderson on this station. That's how it works, right? That's how it worked here at K-Wave, I think. No. Anyway, how you guys doing? Ready to answer more calls?
Let's do it. We're ready.
Okay, let's go to Michigan. Speak with Michael. Welcome to Pastor's Perspective, Michael.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
How are you guys today?
Doing well, thanks.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so yes, I had kind of like a two-part question.
Okay.
That's up to you guys.
Sure.
The first one would be, what would you guys say is the mark of the beast that the Bible speaks of in Revelation 13, I believe?
Okay. Brian?
Well, Michael, there's been a lot of speculation about just what that is, and I don't think anybody really knows. I mean, it is a mark, and Revelation 13, like you said, refers to it, and it's a mark that is received, at some point in time, implemented by the false prophet for an indicator of submission to the person that we commonly call the Antichrist, and it's a mark on the right hand or the forehead. So, some have thought it's an implanted chip under the skin, some kind of a barcode type of a thing. The book of Revelation tells us it's a number of a man, 666. But what it actually is going to be, I don't think anybody knows currently. And I would imagine when it happens, probably people will go, wow, I never thought that was it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's just one of those things we don't know.
Some have even said it might be this new COVID vaccine that might be coming out.
Well, some are saying that, yeah. I mean, people are pretty freaked out. You got two groups of people, right? You got people that are so excited about the vaccine and can't wait to get it. And then you got other people saying, over my dead body, I'm never going to get it. It's because some people have actually said that you're going to be able to trace people everywhere with it. And some have even indicated that this is the mark of the beast, which it is not the mark of the beast, because the mark of the beast doesn't come until a very specific point in history, and it's something that is brought into existence by the forces of the Antichrist himself, not by, the Dr. Fauci and his group.
All right. And what's question number 2, Michael?
Okay, well, question number 2 is regarding Romans 9 and 13.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding, where it said that for Jacob I love, but Esau I hated. Who would be the current descendant of Esau, or does God really hate Esau?
Okay, Bobby?
The way that we are to take this is not like I literally hate Esau. For example, Jacob would have been commanded to love Esau. Well, how would Jacob love his brother? Or, Esau's parents would have, been called to love Esau. Well, how would they have loved him? When we love people, God is love, and we derive that love for others from God, whether we recognize that's where it comes from or not. And so it would be interesting to be commanded to love Esau, but then God hates Esau. Well, if we need to draw on love for Esau and God hates Esau, it seems like we're in a little bit of a quandary. Nevertheless, the real point would be something like, Jacob I chose and Esau I didn't. Jacob is chosen and Esau is not. So, for example, like Jesus said, if anyone is going to follow me, he must hate his mother and his brothers and his sisters. So obviously we're not to hate our mother, and we're to honor our mother, and we're to honor our father. In fact, that's part of the 10 Commandments. So if we press it too hard, you'll end up thinking that God literally hates Esau. And there are people that have done that. I used to be a 5-point Calvinist, and I know many Calvinists would be very comfortable with that position. I shouldn't say comfortable, but they'll take that position. Not all Calvinists would do that, but some would. And I would say, I do like the statement that was once said, and I think it was Charles Spurgeon, but I don't want to be quoted on that, where it's this whole idea like, man, we all scratch our head and go, how in the world could God hate Esau? But the real question was, how could God love Jacob? I mean, Jacob's a deceiver. I mean, how is it that he loved Jacob? And so I think sometimes we feel entitled to God's love, and that was kind of the point of that statement that I'm bringing up, if it's Spurgeon. And I think that we should all recognize and be humbled by his love for us. So chosen, not chosen is the way to understand that. And when it talks about hating your mother and brothers and sisters, whatever, our love for Jesus to be so fully devout that our commitment to him, everything else in this world looks like hate compared to our absolute devotion to him. Now, that's not literal hate. It's just we got to have our devotions rightly ordered.
Yeah. Brian, anything to add?
I would just add that Paul is quoting, is it quote from Malachi? Where was that?
Yes.
Yeah,
is
Malachi 1, verses 2 and 3.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so Paul's quoting from Malachi, and if you notice what he says there, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated, and I've laid his hills waste. So God is not even talking about the individuals. He's talking about the nations that proceeded from him. So Jacob, of course, is Israel, and the nation of Israel proceeded from him. Esau would be Edom, the Edomites. And so it's, again, it's talking about their descendants many centuries after they lived. And as you see, many centuries after they lived, the Edomites were people who lived in hostility to the Israelites and to the God of Israel. And of course, Israel lived in, submission to God. So again, it's not individuals that are being spoken of, but it's these nations that had already formed their position regarding God at the time.
Yeah, and even that corporate take is kind of, it helps you when you're reading about election and stuff in Romans chapter 9 as well, that this is corporate election.
Yeah.
It's not like this individual election, and that just opened my eyes when I took that stance as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Michael, what do you think?
I'm sorry. I was driving, I'm glad he brought up Malachi, because that's exactly where I was going to question next. Because when I read it myself, I was under the understanding of maybe he was just saying he chose Jacob, he didn't. And also in a few scriptures earlier, I believe verse 11 in Romans, it said not due to works, but due to election or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So that made me see that it's not saying based off of what they done. Neither one of them said for the children having not been yet born.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of was like, okay, now, so what is it saying? Then someone brought to my attention Malachi, where it said the whole nation of Edom.
Yeah.
So it's not just Esau, just in himself, but also
Yeah, it's not like God just hates people, some people. He just decides, I'm going to hate them, and I'm going to love these guys.
Yeah.
Now, some people say that. Some people think that's true, but I don't think that the Bible is teaching that. So, hey, Michael, I got a question for you. You're in Detroit, is that right? Are you in Detroit?
Yes, I'm in Detroit.
How are you hearing us? Are you listening online or?
On YouTube. I seen the live stream, I guess it was called.
Okay, because you said you were driving, so I didn't know if you were listening to like an actual radio station or...
Yeah, no, I'm on the live stream. I have YouTube Premium, so I'm able to listen into the background while I'm driving. So
Great.
I was just able to kind of copy the number and call in.
How did you find out about our program?
I was actually just watching a few videos on Romans, and then you guys came up in my recommended as a live stream.
Oh,
So I figured I'd just call in.
That's great. Well, cool. Glad you called in.
Very cool.
Yeah,
We're here
sure.
every day, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific time. On Thursdays, we're here for an extra hour. So thanks for calling in. We
Yeah.
hope to hear from you again soon.
That's awesome.
Yep, 888-56. Never mind, I'm not going to give the phone number out because this program is playing on the radio on a day when we're not live, so you can't call in.
Caught us on the YouTube.
Yes.
I know, right?
That's
Pretty cool.
Yeah, the YouTube. Yeah.
The YouTube. Man,
Bobby, you're on the YouTube.
I am.
He owns YouTube.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's
Tell ya.
something else to check out, Michael, is Bobby's 1 Minute Apologist channel on YouTube.
Yeah, we've got about 1,200 videos now.
Wow.
So we've just been putting out a bunch of content. So for sure, check it out.
Very, very cool. All right, let's go back to California. Here's James. Welcome to Pastor's Perspective, James.
Hello, guys. How you doing?
Doing well, thanks. What's up?
So I had my sister gave me a hypothetical question. My sister, she is gay, and she said like if I would be able to like participate in her wedding if she ever got married.
Mm-hmm.
It took like a couple of days, and I was praying on it, and I know what the Bible says about being a marriage between one man and one woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so I talked to her a couple of days later, and I had told her that, and I actually gave her my entire testimony on how I got saved.
Mm-hmm.
And with all that, I told her that I wouldn't be able to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, things have changed. And then I talked to my dad, and he asked if he understands that I couldn't be a part of it, but would I be able to be in the audience?
Mm-hmm. So that's what you're wondering, if you gave the right response to your sister and to your dad. Bobby, what would you say first?
This is not as black and white, I think, as some Christians would make it appear. It's possible to completely hold your Christian convictions that marriage is between a man and a woman, as it seems like you would acknowledge, James, and then also recognize that I've got this relationship that I'm trying to steward, and in your case, a sibling. I do think that it would be a different scenario if you're a part of the wedding, like you're going to officiate it or something like that. From the audience standpoint, I think that if you were to say something like you already have, like, look, this is what I believe that the Bible teaches, but I still love you as a person. And I think that some people will say, well, if you're sitting in the audience, and I used to say this too, like, oh, you in the audience means that you support the wedding that's happening right now. Well, I don't know that it's always the case. And just remove the homosexual piece. I mean, there's heterosexual people that are getting married sometimes that a mom or a dad don't necessarily, or a sibling, don't really feel the best about, and they don't support it, but they love their sibling, or they love their daughter, or they love their son. And so I think as long as a Christian voices their thoughts so that they don't lead the person to think that they think it's okay and that God endorses this, but I'm there because I love you and I care about the relationship, I think that could be maybe one way that you can preserve the relationship, yet you haven't compromised your convictions. So some would say, oh, just because you've compromised your convictions. Well, if we really want to be consistent and run that across the board, then we need to walk out of a lot of places that we go in life. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, like, excuse me, what are we watching? What are we seeing? Where are we going? So I think we can go into this world, just don't compromise in it, and let people know what we believe and love the world that we live in. And so that's where I'm currently at on this. Nevertheless, James, if you're not comfortable with that at the end of the day, then you have your own conscience, and we're all accountable before the Lord. And I think that that's where we have to be gracious to one another. So to the Christians out there who would maybe say to you, oh, I can't believe you've done this, you've compromised on your faith. Well, no, you still believe what you believe about the Bible. You're just trying to show that you still love your sister, even though you don't agree with the decisions that she's making. So I would say that.
Brian, did you want to say anything else?
I agree with Bobby, and I think that we've answered this question over the years, right? And there has been that accusation quite often, that you're going to be endorsing this if you go and you're showing approval for it, which I just disagree with. And I think that I've known cases where people have invited their Christian friend to their gay wedding, knowing that their Christian friend does not agree with gay marriage. Mm-hmm. And the Christian friend has felt compelled to go. So everything's clear. I'm not coming here because I agree with what you're doing. I'm coming here because I love you and I'm your friend, and I'm looking for in the long haul, I want to be in your life. And so I think I think that's very possible that would be the right direction. Now, not everybody is going to be able to do that or feel good about that. And that's why I think we need to have enough grace to just say, well, if I have a conviction that I can't do that, that's fine, but I can't impose my conviction on somebody else and say, because I can't do it, you can't do it either. That's the thing that you have to leave between the person and the Lord.
I remember we had a caller about this recently. Like you said, this is one of our FAQs, frequently asked questions, and our caller said that she felt like she couldn't say congratulations. Mm-hmm. She's going to go to the wedding. She's not going to say congratulations. Mm-hmm. She might say best wishes because she wishes that the two people will come to know Christ and come to a saving knowledge. But yeah. All right, James, thanks for your phone call on Pastor's Perspective. Let's go to Georgia. Here is Rhonda. Welcome to the program, Rhonda.
Thank you. Just listening to that last comment, if you don't mind, if I could just throw this out there real quick. Jesus went into the den of iniquities and stuff to testify and to try to bring the lost people to, God, to be saved. So if we don't get out there to them, they may never know that.
Amen,
so
Rhonda.
Not that you're condoning it. Sorry.
Amen.
Yeah, that's right.
We're with you.
Yeah. My question is, when we die and we're all in heaven with Jesus, are we all going to be the same age or the age when we die?
What do you guys think? Bobby?
Well, Rhonda, it sounds like, are you from Southern California?
No.
Hey, we love that Southern accent. My wife's from Arkansas, and what I loved so much is like, when we started dating, I would say hi, and she'd say ha, and I'd say bye, and she'd say bye, and I'd say why, and she'd say why, and anyway, we spent about 20 years in the South, and my wife's in North Carolina right now. She had to go get her fix, and I'll be there this weekend, and so. A shout out to you in the South, and it's just refreshing to hear your Southern accent. It reminds me of just a bunch of people that I love in the South, that's for sure. Now, when we get to heaven, will we all be the same age? I think we're not all going to look like if you die as an infant, you're not going to look like an infant. I've heard Pastor Brian mention, Adam and Eve, when they were created, they were 0, but how old would they have looked? Well, they would have looked like, adults, right? And so if I was guessing, we probably, hopefully we'll look at our best stage of our earthly existence in a glorified way. But if I'm guessing, probably that 30-year range, but I mean, I speculate. We'll be adult-like. And then as far as age goes, we'll all have the same date that we were born with, right? So on an interesting way, like my grandpa, he'll always be able to pull out the card that he's older than me, right? Like he could say that in heaven, like he's older than me because he was born before me, right? Because I began to exist. Only one never began to exist. That's God. He's a non-contingent being. He's a necessary being. Everything else is a contingent being, and that includes me. So my existence began March 4th, 1973. I'm going to exist forever, but I don't think we'll have birthdays and stuff like that. So I think the real question is just how old are we going to look, and I think we'll just look mature.
George, Rhonda, does that help you?
Well, I was just contemplating that as you were talking about it, and I kind of thought, well, maybe we would be in our middle 30s about the time when Jesus died, you know.
Yeah. I don't know. I just don't know exactly what that'll look like. I don't know what the glorified body is going to really appear to be either. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll all have real silver hair. Gray hair is a splendor of wisdom. Well, we'll definitely be wise in heaven. So, the picture that John sees of Jesus in the book of Revelation, it's Jesus with that white hair. So you just never know until we get there exactly what it's going to be. But those are fun conversations to speculate, and we appreciate your call.
Especially with your Southern accent. It makes it even more fun.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your phone call, Rhonda. Maybe we'll all be 10 years old, like Enoch, calling from California. Welcome to the program, Enoch.
Hello, thank you. My question was that how long did it take from Adam and Eve to eat from the fruit of the good and evil?
From the time like how long was that, Pastor Brian? What do you think? A couple weeks, maybe? A few days?
Enoch, we're never told that. And so it's really one of those things that's hard to figure it out. I mean, I've thought about it myself before and wondered, would it have been like immediately that happened, or would they've gone some time in the garden before that ever happened? And it seems like it was relatively soon, but yet how soon we just do not know. But it's something that we'll find out someday.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, buddy. Thanks for calling.
Call anytime on the Pastor's Perspective program. Another one from California here. Mary, welcome. You're next with Brian Broderson and Bobby Conway. Hello.
Hi, hello.
What is up?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. What's your question?
I wanted to know what causes the human heart to rebel against God.
All right, Brian.
Well, that is
a big question.
That's a big question. Yeah. Well, it's sin. It's sin. Of course.
Because I'm sorry to cut you off. I always thought that it was it had to do with the devil, but I heard you guys discussing it on the radio.
Yeah.
Like talking about like the 1,000-year reign or something like that. That
right.
How would the world be without Satan?
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to know if it's not Satan that's causing sin. Like, why are we sinful without Satan?
Yeah. Well, so you have to go back to the very beginning. So God creates human beings, Adam and Eve, and they are sinless at the time. They don't have sin, but he gives the command that you can eat from, you're not to eat from this tree that's in the midst of the garden, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The serpent comes and tempts the woman eats it, and then the man partakes of it as well. And so this is where sin enters in. And so sin and now enters into the human constitution, and it's passed from generation to generation. So before Adam and Eve ate the fruit, they are not sinful, so they don't have an inclination toward rebellion, but they have a free will to make a choice of whether they're going to do what God said or not do what God said. So they make the choice to disobey God, and then they pass on to us, their descendants, this fallen, sinful nature. So we have a fallen nature in that we have a principle of rebellion that's literally resides in us. The heart is rebellious by nature now because of the fall. And so even if there isn't a devil to tempt us, we still have that sinful nature. If there's no one to tempt us, though, then, it's not going to be exploited, or it's not going to be, clearly manifested until there is the opportunity to exercise that will against God's will, and then it comes out.
What do you think, Mary?
Yeah, I was having a hard time, but yeah, that explanation makes sense.
Good. Great.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Is that good?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Call us anytime with your questions here on Pastor's Perspective. Here's Amy. Wants to know about celebrating the holidays. Hi there, Amy. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
I'm Christian, and is it bad to celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas?
Okay. Bobby?
What is Christmas, right? Like the way that we understand Christmas is that we're celebrating the birth of Christ. And if that's what our focus is on, then that's beautiful and that's wonderful. Now, as far as, the date that Jesus was actually born, we don't know that for certain, and we don't think that it's December 25th, but at the same token, it's nice to be able to commemorate what Jesus did for us and coming into the world to rescue us and to redeem us. And so I do think that, unfortunately, sometimes, Santa Claus can get in the way and steal the show. And we have to, as moms and dads who have kids, we have to make sure that we work through all that, and different people have different convictions about that. Some people don't believe in celebrating Santa at all. Others are okay, but they want to make sure that they keep Jesus front and center. And so that works for different families in different ways. I think that at the end of the day, though, we should remember that what Christmas is to be about for the Christian is a celebration that Jesus came in the world, and that's beautiful and that's wonderful. I would say, as it relates to Thanksgiving, I'm thankful for the Pilgrims. I'm thankful for this nation that we have. I don't like, some of the checkered origin that we have with, what happened to the Native Americans. I don't like, some of the slavery that took place in the early part of our country and really went on for quite some time. But nevertheless, I'm still thankful, that we have a nation and that we have a place that we can call America. And I don't think this is a perfect nation, but I'm thankful to be an American. And I think it's a good thing. And I think that it saddens me that people don't, it's almost like a crime to be patriotic today. Mm-hmm. And I think that we should love our country. I think that wherever you're born, you should try to find something you love about your country and look to celebrate and have values and traditions around the fact that you're a people together and that you live and die together and you suffer together, and that's all important. So for me, I'm looking forward to celebrating Thanksgiving. I'm looking forward to, being with family and loved ones. And I'm especially looking forward, my favorite meal on Thanksgiving is the nuke meal, is when I go heat up my turkey and my all the fixins. I love just putting that in the microwave. I love round two. Mm-hmm. There's just something about round two. And, I tend to have to repent of gluttony on Thanksgiving because I do go all out. Now, is your lovely bride going to be making this sugar-free cheesecake for Thanksgiving, or are you going to throw some real sugar in there?
No, I think we're going to be sugar-free. Yeah, I think that we will be sugar-free.
Yeah.
But she does make a good one.
And the thing about Thanksgiving, too, is we should have an attitude of Thanksgiving every day, not just one day a year.
Yes. Yep. Eucharisto, to give thanks.
Mm-hmm. Does that help you, Amy?
Yes, thank you for answering my question.
You bet.
Thanks for
God
calling
bless,
us
Amy.
On Pastor's Perspective. Got some more phone calls coming up in just a little bit. In case you just tuned in, we're called Pastor's Perspective. We're here every weekday afternoon at this time, and you guys call in with your questions, and we do our very best to answer them. Our usual panel of pastors is in the studio today. It's Pastor Brian Broderson from Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California, and author and apologist Dr. Bobby Conway from the 1 Minute Apologist channel on YouTube. We're going to take a little break, and then we'll be back with more of your questions. Susan, you'll be next. Travis, you're on hold as well. We'll get to you. Maybe we'll get to some Facebook questions as well. But thanks so much for listening to Pastor's Perspective. We'll be back.
Pastor's Perspective continues in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Pastor's Perspective continues. And now, here's today's host, Brian Perez.
What is up, everybody? Thanks so much for listening to the Pastor's Perspective program. We've just started the second half, and let's see how many questions we can get to. We've got Pastor Brian Broderson from Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California, and Bobby Conway was here a minute ago. Oh, there he is. He just walked by. Bobby Conway from the 1 Minute Apologist channel on YouTube, taking his chair and ready to answer some questions as well. All right, guys, ready?
Good. We're ready.
Okay, we'll start with Susan. You're on Pastor's Perspective. Hello.
Hello, my brothers. I love you all so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I'm not a preterist, but I do wonder with regards to Matthew 24 and not letting your flight be on the Sabbath and all of that. Wasn't Jesus talking about the 70 A.D. on a lot of these things? And like there's one place also where he said, God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. And yet in Romans 14, it says, for to this end Christ both died and rose and revived, that he might be Lord both of the dead and living. So my question then is since 70 AD did happen, and all those 7 churches, Ephesus and Laodicea and all them, literally are not there anymore, though we can, look at them from our point of view, all that. Anyway, where are we? And yet I know, it's like 1948 changed a lot of things, but it doesn't answer the question. Mm-hmm. Where are we?
Where are we?
Did all that make sense?
Sure, yeah. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you've been studying and doing your homework, so that's great. I think that it is true that whether it's Matthew 24 or Mark 13 or Luke 21. Also, Luke 17 has a little bit of the prophetic scenario for the last days in it. I think that you have to understand that there's two things being blended together there. Yes, of course, it would have had reference to 70 AD. You know, Jesus is sitting there; they're marveling at the size of the glory of the temple, the size of the stones, and all that. Jesus says, "Not one stone will be left upon another that will not be thrown down." That literally happened in 70 AD. But just like if you go back to Isaiah and you read about the destruction of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, you could see a foreshadowing of 70 AD, and you can see a foreshadowing of the future final judgment upon a temple as well. So I think we have to understand that, yes, it was partially, or it was fulfilled in one sense in 70 AD. But then if you look at Matthew 24, for example, there are things that just did not take place. So we have, all the things that occurred that we know occurred historically in 70 AD. But then if you just from that point, where pray that your flight will not take place in the winter on the Sabbath. And then verse 21 says, "For then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again." So you can't say that about 70 AD. In those days, if those days had not been cut short, no one would survive. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if anyone says to you, "Look, here is the Messiah," there he is, do not believe it, for false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you, if someone tells you there he is in the wilderness, do not go out, or he is in the inner room, do not believe it. For as lightning that comes from the east and is visible even to the west, so will the coming of the Son of Man be. Verse 30, then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and all the people of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. None of that happened in 70 AD. So there's got to be something beyond 70 AD that is being spoken of here. And likewise in the other. And Luke is the only one that, Luke actually makes a distinction, because Luke says, these things are happening, that it might be fulfilled. And then where it talks about the speaking of Israel, that they're going to be led captive into all nations. And when you see Jerusalem surrounded with armies, these are the days of vengeance, is what it says. And this is the time when they're going to be led captivity into all nations, and will be captive until, they say, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord," and so forth. So all of that to say, I think you have two things blended together. You have 70 AD, yes, but you also have the final judgment that's going to come. Where are we in relation to that? Well, there is no temple in Jerusalem today, so obviously it's not going to happen next week, but there's plenty of efforts to see a temple reestablished. There's all kinds of politics that would be involved in that. But there's a group of Jewish people in the land that are working toward that are preparing for that are believing that day is going to come. And I think they're right. I think it will come, but it just not yet.
Susan mentioned the word preterist. She says she's not a preterist, but some people might have heard that term for the first time, and they're wondering, what is preterism? Is it valid? Should they look into it? What do you think?
Well, Bobby's a preterist, so he can he can give the best explanation.
No, I think that it just refers to the past. Believing it's all been fulfilled. So a preterist is somebody that's going to take, Mark 13 in Luke and the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24, 25. They're going to see this stuff as fulfilled. They're going to see the book of Revelation that was fulfilled, and I think that for me, I like the way that you explained it, because there are some things that make sense of fulfillment, like, the temple was destroyed in AD 70, so you can see some of it, but not all of it. Yeah. And so that's where, when you look at these different viewpoints, I think it's helpful to look at the different viewpoints. Like, we'll shoot all these different viewpoints down, even if it comes to the rapture. You pre-wrath, you mid-trib, you post-trib, where are you at in that whole thing, right? Well, look at the different views, because at least you can understand what's confusing people about maybe your own view. And it can be the same thing about how this whole eschaton is going to wrap up. If you look at the different views, you can kind of see like, I understand how some people went down this preterist road, because Jesus did say not one stone is going to be left here, right? And this did happen in AD 70 when Titus came in and they destroyed, Jerusalem. So I would say, separating that out, though, the way that Pastor Brian did, and you look in the Olivet Discourse right here, as we just read through some of those verses, there's some stuff yet to come. And I think that more of an integrative approach. That's kind of like when I'm thinking about, like, what's my eschatology. I don't want to be scared of looking at the different views, but and I don't even think Pastor Brian or myself would be comfortable with the partial preterist. But just some loose preterist stuff, that some stuff's been fulfilled, is obvious.
Mm-hmm. All right, Susan, thanks for your phone call on Pastor's Perspective. Next, we're going to go to Travis. Travis, what are you doing?
Hi. Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey. Thanks for taking my call, and good to talk to you guys. I listen to the show a lot, so.
Awesome.
Pretty cool. And I'm not a preterist either. So there we go.
We would love you even if you were.
I know you guys would. I get that. So my question was, in regards to the book of Job, sometimes when I read Job, I kind of gloss over the stuff that his friends say, because when you kind of get to the end of it, you're just sort of left with like it was bad advice, or it was or even worse, So I guess my question then is like, how do you guys read that? What do you do with all the non-Job, non-God, and I guess there's that last guy, Eliphaz, is that right? I don't know if I'm right about that, but there's one more guy.
Elihu. I think Elihu is the
Elihu, the last guy. Mm-hmm. So he kind of gets a pass, it seems like, and then, but the other guys don't. So I guess my question is, what do you do with the other guys? How do you read that, or what do you take from it?
So if it's bad advice, why is it in the Bible?
Mm-hmm.
No, not necessarily. No, I mean, because if it's there, it's supposed to be right. But then I guess the question is like, I guess what's your take? How do you guys read those parts, or do you go over them, or what?
Yeah, this is really interesting to think about, because so you've got, Job's three friends. They're counseling him. They're giving him advice. In the end, they are. What does it say? They are darkening counsel with words without knowledge. So they don't know what they're talking about, in other words. But Paul quotes them in the New Testament. He uses some of the statements that they make to bolster his argument, say, when he's talking to the Corinthians about philosophy and those things. He's actually quotes a couple of times from those guys who were speaking to Job, and he quotes them favorably. He says, this is what they said, and it was true. So I think what we have to understand there is they are going to say some things that are true. And so those are the things that we're going to pull out of there and hold on to. And then they're going to make some mistakes. I mean, their big mistake wasn't so much what they said. Their big mistake was their assumption about Job. They thought Job had to be wicked and evil, and he had to be being punished by God, rather than him being a righteous and just man, and God was just allowing this as a test in his life. So their assumption was really the problem, not necessarily the things that they said. So have you thought about that, Bobby?
Well,
I think he's thinking about it right now.
I mean, I've been perplexed by the book of Job, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people just stop with his reaction and they don't go on and read the rest of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, my initial take would be that they're, showing up in silence is a good thing when someone's suffering and hurting. But then they start, sharing false theology with him. They have this misunderstanding of, it's kind of like, who sinned, this man or his parents that he was born blind? So I feel like they've got this false theology, and you see the same kind of work in the prosperity gospel today as well, like the name it and claim it, where they'll end up being kind of Job's friends to those who are sick. You need to have more faith. If God doesn't get you well, then it's because you're stuck in sin. Mm-hmm. And so what's really great about the book of Job is, in the end, I mean, everybody gets their lessons on who God is. And what you realize is Job had to have some theological correction, and Job's friends had to have some theological correction. Mm-hmm. God never changes who he is, but we often have misunderstanding of who God is. And God can use things like the worst type of sufferings to educate us in the school of discipleship toward a greater crystallized theology of who he is. And that's what they all got. They sent them through the school of suffering, and everybody got a more crystallized view of the justice and also the love and some of the mystery of God.
Mm-hmm. Travis, did that help you out at all?
Yeah, that was cool. That was good. And where in the New Testament does he quote the?
When Paul is speaking to the Corinthians, I think it's maybe the second or third chapter, where he says he catches the wise, or the what does he say? He catches the wisdom of. He brings to nothing the wisdom of the wise, and something the foolish. I can't think of the exact wording right now. But those passages right there, I think there's twice in what Paul says to the Corinthians in 2 and 3. Twice he's quoting from Job.
All right, Travis, thanks for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective. Let's go to Vegas. Here's Kim. Welcome to the program, Kim. You're on with Brian Broderson and Bobby Conway.
Hello. Thank you, pastors, for taking my call. I really appreciate it. I'll make it fast because I know time is winding down. I was calling to ask, I have a younger sister. She's a new believer. She just got saved. She ordered a Bible. So she's in that, early stages of her Christian walk. And she expressed to me that she's apprehensive to express to people or even to call herself a Christian, because she knows that her lifestyle is not exemplary to that of as she would consider a perfect Christian. So I explained to her there isn't a such thing as a perfect Christian. Like, we all sin and we all fall short, and that's why we have God's grace to give us the forgiveness that we need. But she was saying, well, I still have a boyfriend, and I feel like, all those things, I'm supposed to get rid of all those things before I can really be considered a real Christian. What's the best approach for me to talk with her about sharing her faith, or even truly considering herself a Christian, because she doesn't feel like she's good enough, quote unquote, based off of her lifestyle?
And her lifestyle meaning that she has a boyfriend?
Yes. Yeah, she still has a boyfriend, and she was saying, like, she feels as though, most the perfect saved people, like, they don't have boyfriends, or they don't have specific types of friends. Like, they disassociate themselves from friends, and she isn't at that point, but you can tell she has the desire and the fervor to get to know the Lord and to read the Word and all of those things. So I don't want to discourage her and say, well, of course, you have to be perfect to consider yourself a Christian, but then she doesn't want to be, I guess, a bad witness.
Right.
Maybe that's the point she was coming from. So I don't.
Okay. Brian, what do you tell Kim? First, is it wrong for Kim's sister to have a boyfriend?
No. Boyfriends are okay. I mean, if she's having intimate relationships with her boyfriend, then that is something that needs to be, God needs to help her out of that. She needs to recognize that that's not something that you do as a Christian. But, I mean, it sounds like she's thinking that until she's perfected or something, she doesn't want to say anything or doesn't feel like she should say anything about her Christian faith because she's not the perfect Christian. Is that what is going on with her? Kim?
Based off of our conversation, yes, that's what I believe that she believes.
Okay.
That she has to be a perfect Christian to be called or to profess that she is a Christian.
Yeah. Well, Christian just means, really, to simplify, it just means a follower of Christ. And if we understand the Bible, we're going to understand that no follower of Christ is perfect. So Christ is the only perfect person. And we're all following him. We are all attempting to, by his grace and through his power, to live for him. And yet we're going to be far from perfect most of the time. So maybe she needs to just understand that her righteousness is not based on her, it's based on her trusting in Jesus. And being a Christian is not being a perfect person, although we're striving for perfection, we're looking to grow into the image of Christ. But being a Christian is putting faith and trust in Christ, because a Christian is a person who says, I'm a sinner and I can't save myself. I need a Savior. And so, people misunderstand what Christians are. People think that Christians are supposed to be perfect people, and that is just not the biblical picture of a Christian. Not to say that we're to just be living in sin and, hey, I'm a Christian, it doesn't matter how I live. No, that's not it. Of course, we're striving to live the way Christ called us to live. But we're not less of a Christian because we haven't attained that yet. We are a Christian not because we attain a certain moral standard. We're a Christian because we trusted in Jesus. So maybe she just needs to have a little bit of a better understanding of what it means that she's become a Christian.
Mm-hmm. And it's possible that the Holy Spirit is potentially convicting her, not knowing the situation, but there could be a virtuousness to this if indeed she recognizes, I have some surrendering to do here, and when I go public, I want to be able to, really be the real deal, and there could be some apprehension around that. Like I know when I first got saved and I was a Christian, I was wanting to tell my friends about Jesus, and I was doing it, but I was still getting completely smashed and inebriated and being promiscuous, and yet torn because I'm this new believer. And I found myself as I started to get more concerned, that's where I share about how I take the cross, and I started eventually tucking it under my shirt instead of wearing it on the outside of my shirt because I knew I was going to go out and get wasted that night. So maybe the Lord's inviting her into, like, everything that Pastor Brian said, I would resonate with it. Yes, we have to understand the gospel. We don't have to be perfect to be used by the Lord, but we are going to be more effective as a witness if we're walking in repentance and we're walking with God and we're trying to model the way that he wants to live. And another thing, statistically speaking, which is unfortunate today, stats show that some of the younger millennials and stuff, many of them feel like it's morally wrong to share the gospel because they have been brought up and they've been raised on, all truth is relative. And so you can't have your own specific truth because that would be like an exclusivism, and that's not tolerated in today's culture. And so it could be that there needs to be some discipleship on that. Have you been influenced by the relativistic culture that says you aren't able to have your belief in an exclusive truth like Christianity? And as a result, is that creating some consternation in you to share the gospel? So at the end of the day, we're all called to share the gospel, and none of us are going to be perfect in doing it. But if we're going to have a greater impact and a greater witness, it's going to be because we are seeking to be what I would call fifth gospel Christians, that our life is being good news to a dark world.
I do like her heart because she's, I know Christians who won't even put a Christian bumper sticker on the back of their car because they're like, no, if I cut somebody off, then somebody's going to say, look, typical Christian, look how they drive. So, wanting to get to that point of perfection, but it's never going to happen. Yeah.
Right. No, but this does help. This helps tremendously. And I'll have a conversation on both ends of her understanding what it means to be a Christian, and just I'll allow God to just take his place and for him to do the work in her that he's beginning, and prayerfully just in time her heart develops the way God sees fit for it to develop towards him and for her testimony.
Definitely.
Yeah. Great. Kim, thanks for calling.
Yep. Let's try to squeeze in one more. Rakhab, hope I'm saying that right, in Georgia, Atlanta. Hello. Thank you for calling.
Yeah. What's up, panel of yeah, I had a question about the book. I had a question about the book of Jeremiah, the 30th chapter.
Yeah.
And the 16th verse, if y'all could.
But all who devour you will be devoured. All your enemies will go into exile. Those who plunder you will be plundered. All who make spoil of you, I will despoil. Pastor Brian, we've only got about a minute left. What would you tell Rakhab?
Well, in the context, God is explaining to Israel, the problem. Of course, the Lord says, your wound is incurable, your injury beyond healing. There is no one to plead your cause, no remedy for your sore, no healing for you. So these, God's sending his people into captivity. That's the context of Jeremiah here. But he is also declaring that he will judge those who mistreat and abuse them when they go into their captivity. So that's verse 16. All who devour you will be devoured. All your enemies will go into exile. And so Babylon would judge Israel, and Babylon then would also be judged.
All right, Rakhab, thank you for calling in with your question. That's about all the time we have on today's program. The music's going to begin any second now. Okay, maybe not. Maybe I got my clock wrong. I don't know. But,
well, let me just give a little thanks and praise that we don't live in Chicago. This is from the mayor of Chicago. Stay home unless for essential reasons. Stop having guests over, including family members you do not live with. Avoid non-essential travel. Cancel traditional Thanksgiving plans.
Wow.
Signed, the Gestapo.
Yeah, right. And on that,
goodness gracious. Well, we'll pray for Chicago, definitely, and the whole country going through so much everything right now. Thank you so much for listening to the Pastor's Perspective program. And look at that, phone call still coming in, but we're out of time. Call us tomorrow. We'll be here between 3 and 4 p.m. Pacific time to take your calls. We love hearing from you guys, but we're out of time for today. For Brian Broderson and Bobby Conway, I'm Brian Perez. Good night. Thanks for listening to Pastor's Perspective.
Thanks for listening to Pastor's Perspective. We trust you've been blessed and had your question answered. Join us Monday through Friday and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Pastor's Perspective. The preceding was sponsored by Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, California.